talk about a couple of things. I wanted to talk about awareness, because I think if you really listen to what I have to say, self-awareness can really benefit your writing. And I also wanted to talk about the elephant in most writers' rooms, which is the self-doubt and the crippling fear that keeps a lot of people from actually pursuing a writing career. And that's not cool. I don't think it's fair that you or anyone should feel that way. So I have a couple of ideas, a couple of, analyzations that I feel like might benefit you. So I'll share those with you. And then finally, I'll just touch on a couple of the future subjects we'll be covering. Self-awareness. What am I talking about? Well, no, I'm not talking about you becoming a new age guru and meditating 3 times a day and doing yoga. Although studies have proven that yoga and meditation are definitely a good thing to do on a regular basis, that is really a personal decision, and that I leave up to you. I don't need to tell you how to live your life. It's complicated enough for me to figure out how to live mine. Giving you advice on that right now. But I'm talking more about awareness in the sense that a lot of us don't have writing jobs as a full-time career. Because it's not part of a full-time layup, it's something we kind of have to schedule into our day-to-day. When it's something you got to schedule in, you got to kind of make space for it and really be at your best when you're ready to sit down and do it. So when I'm talking about awareness, I'm talking about what do you have to do in order that when you sit down in front of your keyboard for your scheduled time to actually write, that you do write at the best possible capacity of your abilities at that specific moment. What do you got to do to get yourself into a flow state, to really just pummel through pages and pages of writing in 2 to 3 hours? That's what I mean about awareness. Some people need to be focused on a variety of different things. I know that Jenna Moresi, another fellow YouTuber here who tells her writing process, has definitely said that she benefits from multitasking, so she has to be on her Facebook chatting with friends while she's writing. She's a full-time writer, so I imagine that kind of dual activity really keeps her focused. But I know other authors that it's don't even put music on, because if I have anything distracting my flow state, it will mess it up for me. So different folks, different strokes. But knowing what you need to write at your best is probably one of the first things that I would suggest that you figure out. Do you need a music list? Do you need to have eaten before? Do you need coffee? Doesn't matter if you've eaten or not. Are you someone who needs to be at the end of their day, or is it more something that functions at its best when it's the beginning of your day? Is it something that you need constantly refreshments for? Some people need to really snack while they type or drink while they type. Whatever your methods may be, I would definitely suggest that you take a week. Just take notes every time you sit down and you actually write out really good pages that you're satisfied with, or really just write in a rhythm that you're satisfied with. What did you do that day? What was the process before you actually sat down to type at your keyboard? What was your method? What was the method to your madness that day? I promise you, the moment you figure out what you need to work at your best and replicate that frequently, it'll be really easy to just kind of turn that state on and off in your head like a light switch whenever you need it. And that's what you want. You want to be able to kind of figure out what you need and do what you need to do in order to get into that state, especially when you have a limited time that you can allot to it. So that's what I'm talking about, awareness. And that's definitely something that we will cover at a later date, more in depth. Number 2, the elephant in the room. I would argue it's not much of an elephant. I would argue that it's pretty much a behemoth that most of us have to deal with on a regular basis. And I think it keeps a lot of young aspiring people from pursuing the things that they're really passionate in. It's very simple. the more you care about something, the more terrified you're going to be of doing it wrong. It's just a human condition. It's not an artist thing, it's a human thing. The more you care about taking care of a project at work, the more stressed you're going to be about it. The more you care about an artistic venture that you're working on at the time, the more stressed you're going to be that you're not good enough to do it. It's just part of, I think, a lot of people's psychology, and I don't necessarily think it's isolated to artistic ventures alone. But it's important to understand that just because you might not be as skilled as you would like yourself to be at this moment doesn't mean you shouldn't work on it. A lot of the writing process is long, and there's a reason for it, because it takes multiple drafts before you get your work to where it needs to be in order for you to feel proud of it. And that's what it is, right? You wouldn't present something to a friend or a family member or, God forbid, a stranger that you weren't proud of. So it's not going to happen in the first draft. I don't know anyone who tells me that their first draft is phenomenal and they're super happy with it and they're ready to send it off for professional edits. I don't think that is actually something that happens. And that's the important thing to remember. I mean, writing is a long-term game. It's a marathon, not a race. Your goal is not to try and get it done in a week and then try to edit it in a month and then try to put it out for sale in 3 more months after you've done the marketing. No, no, no. That is not how you should pursue this. This is a long-term investment. This is something you're going to have to develop over the years, because writing, or really any art form, takes really quite a bit of time before you develop a good strategy for it. Best example, and the only example that I can personally give, is myself, and I apologize, but so I had this fanfic that I started writing in 2013, and fan fiction, totally not serious writing, but because it's not serious, because it doesn't matter who's gonna read it, I ended up trying things that I never would have tried in any of my own personal projects. I had this one chapter where, that credit card commercial, I believe the MasterCard commercial, where they say something costs this much, another thing costs that much, but this is timeless or this is priceless. Yeah, I took that format to open a chapter, and that chapter got so much love, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is silly, but it worked, and I didn't expect it to work. It was just like a spur-of-the-moment attempt and trial at something different, and people loved it. And you wouldn't take those types of risks with your regular work. But perhaps if you have the time to really develop and to work on your writing style, you realize what risks work for the storytelling that you're working with and what risks don't. So you have to write as much as you want, as much as you can fit into your day-to-day life, because the more you write, the more experience you gain, and the more experience you have with the writing style that you have between your ears, the easier it is to know what works and what will not work with more important projects that you're really set on doing well. So I'm going to put a TED Talk below or to the left side or right side. I'm still working out the finesse about this video editing thing, but there will be a TED Talk about the flow state, because I think that's one of those things that's important to understand. And I'm also going to put a TED Talk about the ratio of learning skills. Writing is a skill. It takes a while before you get really good at it, and more importantly, it takes a while before you think you've gotten good at it, because a lot of times you have it in your head that you're not good at something, but everybody else around you is telling you, no, it's actually really cool, you should write more, why haven't you finished the story? I've been waiting for the rest of it for like a year now. Stop! Just write it! It's something that I'm sure you've heard, and if you haven't heard it now, you're probably going to hear it the more you write. It's your opinion of yourself and your opinion of your skill sets is always going to be harsher than everybody else's. So don't stop just because you're afraid. In fact, power through it because you're afraid. I mean, the Mentats had a really cool quote about fear, and Mentats are from the Dune series from Frank Hoyerbird, and I definitely suggest that you read it. Even if you don't like it right now, when you try to read it, you should read it later, because it's an amazing series. But I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with the speech against fear that the Mentats have, their little repetition that they do fear is the little death that lets you die a million deaths over and over again. Yeah. But like the mentat, you have to power through, you have to let your fear pass through you and look at its exit point behind you to realize it really wasn't as bad as you thought it was. So, with all of that motivational humble bumble out of the way, what am I trying to bring to you? I am an overthinker. One of my two writer friends who live locally around here often tell me that I am an overthinker to the point of insanity, and I don't do this on purpose, it's just the way my mind works. But it's also made me really good at taking big things, breaking them down into bite-sized pieces, and making everything seem doable, because we're going to do this first, and it's going to take approximately this amount of time, and we're going to do this next, and this next, and this next. And by breaking a big task up into smaller bite-sized parts like that, it makes it a lot less scary. It also makes it feel like it's a lot less daunting. And because it's small things at a time that you then put together, and then all you gotta do is just kind of clean up the lines, it makes it all in all a little bit less stressful an endeavor to take part in. And I definitely would like to help you take as much of the stress out of your system as I can with these endeavors, because I don't think you should be stressed about writing. I think you should enjoy the writing process, because realistically speaking, the writing's the fun part. It gets a lot harder after you're done with your first draft, because after you're done with the first draft, you gotta clean that up. And that can take forever, and that can be brutal. And then, God forbid, once you're done cleaning it up, you send it to an editor, and they just like, all the red everywhere, and your baby's bleeding, and you're like, no! Why have you murdered my child? Well, that's writing. And like the phoenix, you gotta rise from your ashes and keep at it, because the longer you do it, the better you get at it, and the better your work becomes as a product of that work. So, what I offer you is an analytical and systematic breakdown of how I write. Granted, I am not a published author at this time, but I'm working on it. And hopefully, as you take a glance at the way I write, it'll give you a template to kind of latch onto, and you can pick and choose to keep what you find works for you and what you find doesn't work for you. I mean, that's one of the nice things about us having so many authors here to contribute on this channel. You get to see a variety of different ways to do this. And really, there are as many ways to write a story as there are authors writing in the amount of languages that they write in, because I write in English primarily, but I also translate my stuff in French, and quite frankly, the way I write in English and the way I write as French is like two separate worlds. It's not the same. So understand that it's going to be hard, it's going to be long, but it's going to be worth it, because it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be giving birth to something that is completely just imaginary and out of your head. And you're the only one who can do that, so you should do it. Even if it doesn't bring you anything more than a sense of accomplishment, and people who read it a sense of joy. Because that is what it is, right? At the end of the day, you're telling stories because you want to bring a little bit of hope and light and love in people's lives. Or, I don't know, maybe you're writing horror and you want to scare the crap out of them. Doesn't matter what emotions you want to make people feel. But at the end of the day, you're trying to create something that makes people feel something that they may or may not have felt before. And that's a worthy endeavor, and you should definitely do it. And yeah, let's talk again soon. And I guess we'll talk about how to get into your writing state and what kind of an environment promotes a good writing state, at least based on my biased opinion. So without that, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. Have a great week. And we'll hang out soon again.